Nebraska football, a cornerstone of the state's identity and a symbol of American athletic tradition, has endured a troubling decline under head coach Matt Rhule. Since his arrival in 2023, Rhule's leadership has been marked by a series of questionable decisions, from disastrous quarterback selections to baffling in-game choices, culminating in the controversial Husker Games of April 2025. This event, a stark departure from the revered red-white spring game, has fueled speculation that Rhule's tenure is part of a deliberate conspiracy to dismantle Nebraska football. Theories suggest Rhule was either hired to tank the program, selected for his proven incompetence masked by coach speak, or manipulated by external forces seeking to weaken the Huskers and, by extension, American football culture. This report delves into the Husker Games as a symbol of Nebraska's orchestrated downfall, Rhule's mismanagement, and the sinister motives behind targeting a program tied to Nebraska's agricultural and cultural fabric. The Husker Games, an embarrassment and symbol of decline. The Husker Games, held on April 26, 2025, at Memorial Stadium, replaced Nebraska's iconic red-white spring game, a tradition that once drew over 60,000 fans to celebrate the program's competitive spirit. In its place, Rhule introduced a spectacle that included a women's flag football exhibition, a mechanical cow-roping contest, a wing-eating competition, and equipment sales, with only a limited scrimmage featuring non-starters. The event, attended by a meager 8,000 fans, was widely criticized as a humiliating departure from Nebraska's football legacy. The absence of key players like quarterback Dylan Raiola, combined with the decision to forego television coverage, suggested an intent to conceal the team's progress and alienate its passionate fanbase. The Husker Games were not merely a misstep but a calculated embarrassment, designed to erode the program's prestige. The women's flag football event, while promoted as inclusive, was seen as a distraction from the main attraction, competitive football, further diluting the focus on the Huskers' core identity. The mechanical cow-roping and wing-eating contests, marketed as fan engagement, were mocked as carnival-like gimmicks, unfit for a program of Nebraska's stature. The low turnout and lack of substantive football content signaled a deliberate shift away from tradition, fostering disillusionment among fans and weakening the program's cultural hold on the state. This debacle, coupled with Rhule's justification of protecting players from transfer portal tampering, is interpreted by critics as a pretext for diminishing Nebraska's visibility and competitive edge, aligning with a broader agenda to tank the program. Matt Rhule's mismanagement, a pattern of failure. Rhule's tenure, with a 12-13 record through 2024, is defined by a litany of mismanagement decisions that appear to undermine Nebraska football's potential. His questionable choices span quarterback coaching, in-game decisions, and staffing, each contributing to the narrative of intentional or incompetent sabotage. Quarterback coaching debacle. Rhule's handling of quarterbacks has been a focal point of criticism, marked by poor selections and stifled development. In 2023, Rhule handpicked Jeff Sims, a transfer from Georgia Tech with a documented history of turnovers, as the starting quarterback. Sims' performance was catastrophic, completing 28 of 47 passes for 282 yards, 1 touchdown, and 6 interceptions in 5 starts. His 3 turnovers per game, including 4 interceptions in losses to Minnesota and Colorado, directly cost Nebraska winnable contests. Critics argue that Rhule's decision to start Sims, despite his 55.3% completion rate and 11 interceptions at Georgia Tech, reflects either gross incompetence or a deliberate choice to weaken the team. In 2024, Rhule got lucky in landing 5-star freshman Dylan Raiola, a highly touted pro-style passer whose father, Dominic Raiola, played for Nebraska. Despite being heavily recruited by Nebraska earlier, Raiola chose another school, and Rhule and Nebraska had stopped actively recruiting him due to his commitment elsewhere, only for Raiola to decide to join the Huskers on his own, raising expectations of an offensive revival. Early in the season, Raiola looked the part of a 5-star recruit, delivering impressive performances in the first few games with poise and precision. However, as the season progressed, Raiola struggled, throwing 10 interceptions against 12 touchdowns and failing to deliver the explosive passing game anticipated. His late-season mistakes, including critical interceptions in losses to UCLA and Iowa, raised concerns that Rhule and his offensive coordinators' coaching hurt Raiola's success rather than helped him. Rhule's public comments about Raiola's weight, suggesting he won't be a great quarterback at 240 pounds, further alienated fans, who saw this as a misguided focus on physicality over passing refinement. The contrast between Sims' failure and Raiola's stagnation suggests Rhule's quarterback coaching is either intentionally detrimental or woefully inadequate, aligning with theories of sabotage or incompetence. In-game decisions costing wins. Rhule's in-game management has repeatedly cost Nebraska potential victories, with questionable play calls and clock mismanagement fueling conspiracy theories. In the 2023 season opener against Minnesota, Nebraska trailed 13-10 with 2:32 remaining and one timeout. Rhule's conservative play calling, including a 3-and-7 screen pass gaining only 3 yards, and his failure to use the timeout led to a rushed fourth down interception, sealing the loss. Against Iowa in 2023, Rhule's decision to go for it on 4-and-2 at Iowa's 49-yard line, calling a predictable run play that was stuffed, handed Iowa field position for a tying field goal, ultimately leading to a 13-10 defeat. In 2024, a conservative final drive against Ohio State, featuring 2 runs for minimal gains and a punt with 1:45 left, squandered a chance to upset a top-ranked opponent. Similarly, a failed 2-point conversion against UCLA, with a poorly designed pass play, kept Nebraska trailing by 7 instead of 6, contributing to a 27-20 loss. These decisions, consistently tilting games toward defeat, suggest either a deliberate intent to lose or a level of incompetence that aligns with a conspiracy to undermine the program. Disorganized and questionable staffing. Rhule's staffing choices further bolster the narrative of mismanagement. His loyalty to underperforming assistants, such as offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield, has drawn scrutiny. Satterfield's offense ranked 115th nationally in 2023 and struggled in 2024, averaging 14.6 points during a 3-game losing streak. His demotion to tight ends coach, while retaining a $1.4 million salary, was seen as a financial compromise rather than a merit-based decision. Rhule's replacement, Dana Holgorsen, brought a temporary offensive spark but faced questions about his air raid system's fit with Nebraska's roster. More troubling, Rhule's staff includes coaches rumored to have substance abuse issues, with public accounts suggesting personal conduct problems among assistants. While these claims lack definitive proof, they contribute to perceptions of a disorganized staff mirroring Rhule's chaotic leadership style. The coaching team appears more focused on adopting trendy coaching personas, replete with motivational jargon and social media presence, than delivering results, echoing Rhule's own tendency to prioritize optics over substance. This disorganized, appearance-driven approach raises suspicions that Rhule's staff was assembled to perpetuate failure, either by design or through negligence. Conspiracy theories. Why target Nebraska football? The Husker Games and Rhule's mismanagement are seen as part of a broader conspiracy to dismantle Nebraska football, driven by external forces with motives rooted in cultural, economic, and geopolitical agendas. Nebraska's program, a symbol of state pride and agricultural identity, is an ideal target for several reasons. Undermining American football culture. American football, particularly in rural strongholds like Nebraska, instills values of discipline, resilience, and camaraderie in young men, fostering a traditional ethos that some groups seek to erode. Organizations, both domestic and foreign, may aim to transform football into a hollowed-out version of itself, maintaining its outward form while altering its cultural impact. By infiltrating programs like Nebraska's, these forces could install leaders like Rhule to weaken the sport's foundational values, replacing them with a sanitized, less influential version. Nebraska's loyal, trusting fanbase, often described as naive and swayed by persuasive rhetoric, is particularly vulnerable to such manipulation. Rhule's coach speak, filled with motivational platitudes, may exploit this trust, masking his detrimental decisions with promises of future success. Controlling Nebraska's agricultural influence. The University of Nebraska's prominence in agricultural research and its role in the state's economy make it a strategic target for external corporations and organizations. These entities, seeking to dominate agricultural innovation and policy, could infiltrate the university's social and athletic structures to exert influence. A weakened football program, which unites Nebraska's communities, destabilizes social cohesion, making the state more susceptible to external agendas. By diminishing the Huskers' cultural significance, these forces could pave the way for unchallenged control over Nebraska's agricultural sector, a critical component of the national food supply chain. Strategic manipulation of a high-profile program. Nebraska's storied football history makes it a high-profile platform for testing strategies to manipulate American sports. By placing figures like Rhule in leadership roles, external actors could experiment with subtle sabotage, poor decisions masked as progress, without arousing immediate suspicion. This approach could set a precedent for broader influence over college football, a multi-billion-dollar industry with significant cultural weight. Rhule's susceptibility to manipulation, driven by his reliance on ego-stroking advisors and his penchant for coach speak, makes him an ideal candidate for such a role. His history of failing upward, achieving modest turnarounds at Temple and Baylor due to low starting points, only to falter in the NFL, suggests he was chosen for his ability to appear competent while delivering subpar results. Geopolitical and ideological agendas. Beyond domestic interests, foreign entities may view Nebraska as a testing ground for disrupting American cultural institutions. Football, as a symbol of American strength, could be targeted to weaken national morale and identity. Nebraska's agricultural significance amplifies its appeal, as control over its research and economy could align with global agendas to influence food security. Rhule's disorganized staff and questionable decisions, from the Husker Games to quarterback failures, could be orchestrated by advisors placed to steer him toward ruin, exploiting his susceptibility to flattery and external guidance. Evidence supporting the conspiracy. Several pieces of evidence bolster the conspiracy narrative surrounding Rhule's tenure and the Husker Games. Husker Games' alienation of fans, the event's low attendance, exclusion of starters, and focus on gimmicks like mechanical cowroping and wing-eating contests suggest a deliberate attempt to erode fan support and diminish Nebraska's national visibility. Consistent losses in winnable games, Rhule's in-game decisions, such as the Minnesota interception, Iowa's failed fourth down, Ohio State's conservative punt, and UCLA's botched two-point attempt, consistently tilted close games toward defeat, raising suspicions of intentional sabotage. Quarterback failures, the catastrophic selection of Jeff Sims, whose turnovers cost games, and the stifled development of Dylan Raiola, whose interceptions marred his freshman season, point to either gross incompetence or a calculated effort to weaken the offense. Staff disarray, the retention of underperforming assistants like Satterfield, rumors of substance abuse among staff, and the mid-season hiring of Holgerson suggest a leadership team more focused on appearances than results, potentially assembled to perpetuate failure. Nebraska's strategic importance, the university's agricultural prominence and the football program's cultural weight make it a prime target for external manipulation, with Rhule's tenure aligning with a pattern of decline that benefits those seeking control over Nebraska's economy and identity. Conclusion. The Husker Games conspiracy paints a chilling picture of Nebraska football's decline under Matt Rhule, with the April 2025 event serving as a humiliating symbol of the program's orchestrated downfall. Rhule's mismanagement, evident in his disastrous quarterback selections, game-losing decisions, and disorganized staff, suggests he was either hired to tank the program, chosen for his predictable incompetence, or manipulated by external forces exploiting his susceptibility to influence. The targeting of Nebraska football reflects a broader agenda to undermine American football's cultural significance, control the state's agricultural sector, and test strategies for manipulating high-profile sports programs. As Nebraska's trusting fanbase grapples with Rhule's failures, the Husker Games stand as a stark reminder of a program in peril, caught in a web of conspiracy that threatens its legacy and the values it represents.